It began with a simple call, a husband waking to find his wife gone without explanation. Her car, her presence, her warmth all vanished into the cold October air. At first it felt like the start of any missing persons case, but as the hours stretched into days, a disturbing tapestry of secrets began to unravel. What would drive a mother of 4 to disappear in the dead of night? Or was her departure not her choice at all? This isn't just a story of loss, it's a story of control, betrayal, and the depths one person will go to when the life they know begins to slip through their fingers. Welcome to True Crime Theatre HQ, where we uncover the most gripping stories shaping headlines and whispers alike. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more true crime tales like this one. Karen Swift was the kind of person who lit up every room she entered, not with loud gestures or grand displays, but with quiet kindness and an unwavering devotion to those she loved. Her world revolved around her 4 children, and she seemed to pour every ounce of herself into making their lives better. If you were to meet Karen, you'd quickly notice her ability to put others first, always ensuring that those around her felt seen, heard, and cared for. But behind that nurturing warmth, Karen carried the weight of struggles she rarely spoke of. Her marriage to David Swift spanned 22 years, and while it had moments of love and stability, it wasn't without its cracks. In 1999, a decade into their relationship, they separated, a brief pause in their story, but ultimately reconciled, giving their union another chance. The Swift family lived in Dyersburg, Tennessee, a small, tight-knit suburban town where everyone seemed to know each other. Karen was well loved in her social circle, often seen attending neighborhood gatherings or spending time with friends like Bill and Kathy Boner. It was a picture of a family striving for normalcy in the face of their own challenges, but what appeared ordinary on the surface was masking tensions that would soon unravel in the most tragic way imaginable. The night of October 29th, 2011, carried an air of celebration. It was Halloween weekend, and Karen Swift decided to join her friends, Bill and Kathy Boner, for a festive party. Costumes, laughter, and music filled the atmosphere, a rare moment for Karen to unwind after the demands of daily life. But not everyone was thrilled about her choice of companions. Her husband, David, had long disapproved of Bill and Kathy, seeing them as a bad influence and believing their lifestyle didn't align with his vision of what Karen's should be. Despite the tension, Karen was determined to enjoy the night. She had planned to stay with her friends until the early hours, a small escape from the routine. But just after midnight, a phone call changed everything. Her teenage daughter, Ashley, spending the night at a friend's house, was feeling homesick. Karen's instincts as a mother overruled any desire to stay at the party. She hadn't had a drink, so she assured her friends she'd return later, and left to pick up Ashley. Karen arrived home with her daughter around 2 a.m. The house was quiet, David and the other children still asleep. Everything seemed normal, or as normal as it could in a marriage already strained, but by the next morning, Karen was gone. Her car was missing, and there was no sign of where she might have gone in the early hours of October 30th. What began as a festive night quickly turned into the start of a nightmare. At 10 a.m., on October 30th, 2011, David Swift woke to find his wife missing. Karen wasn't in their bed, she wasn't with the children, and her car was gone. Concerned, or so it seemed, David picked up the phone and reported her missing. To outsiders, this might have appeared to be the action of a worried husband, but for those who knew David, it raised an uncomfortable question. Was he genuinely concerned, or was he trying to control the narrative before anyone else could? In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Karen had taken a bold step toward reclaiming her independence. 3 weeks earlier, she had filed for divorce, a decision that would have shaken any relationship. Unable to afford the legal fees on her own, Karen had turned to Bill and Kathy Boner, borrowing $2,000 from the friends David resented most. It was a sign of her determination to move forward a life without David's overbearing presence. But David's controlling tendencies were no secret. Friends and acquaintances recounted stories of him showing up uninvited at Karen's outings, tracking her whereabouts, and questioning her decisions. His dislike for her social circle, particularly Bill and Kathy, was palpable, fueling rumors of tension behind the closed doors of their suburban home. He had Karen's decision to separate pushed David over the edge, or were there other forces at play? As the hours ticked by, the unsettling details surrounding Karen's life and her husband's behavior cast a shadow over what might have happened to her. It was a grim discovery that no one wanted but everyone feared. Weeks after Karen's disappearance, her body was found in a remote corner of a cemetery. She wasn't buried but discarded, her remains left in the open. The autopsy revealed the horrifying truth. Karen had suffered a brutal blow to the head, most likely inflicted with a hammer. The nature of the crime left little doubt this wasn't random. This was deeply personal. As the investigation gained traction, attention quickly turned to David Swift. His behavior during police interrogations was puzzling. For the most part, he was calm, methodical even, as he recounted his version of events. But then, without warning, his demeanor would shift. Sudden outbursts of emotion, tears, trembling hands surfaced as if on cue, leaving investigators questioning their authenticity. Was this grief, or was it a performance designed to manipulate their perception of him? Adding to the suspicion were troubling discoveries on David's computer. Internet searches suggested he had started looking into dating and relationship websites almost immediately after Karen's disappearance. It was as though he had already prepared himself to move on, raising questions about whether he knew she wasn't coming back. Yet, as damning as these details were, the investigation wasn't straightforward. Other names entered the fray. Bill and Kathy Boner, the friends who had supported Karen during her separation, became subjects of scrutiny. Their lifestyle, which David had long criticized, was painted as wild and unpredictable. Then there was John, a neighbor with a disturbing reputation. Known for poisoning neighborhood dogs, his erratic behavior became another thread in the tangled web surrounding Karen's death. While these red herrings muddied the waters, the evidence against David was building. His actions, his demeanor, and his relationship with Karen all pointed to one question investigators couldn't ignore. Was David Swift the only person who truly knew what had happened that night? It took 11 years, but in 2022, David Swift was finally arrested for Karen's murder. The passage of time had done little to erase the questions surrounding her death, and with each new piece of evidence, the case against David grew stronger. Investigators pointed to his controlling nature, the suffocating grip he held on Karen's life, as a potential motive. One particularly chilling detail emerged from Karen's car. When the police examined the vehicle, they noticed something peculiar. The driver's seat hadn't been adjusted. David, a larger man, could slide into the seat comfortably, but Karen, smaller in stature, would have needed to move it forward to drive. This small but significant clue suggested that Karen might not have been the last person to operate her car that night. Financial strain was another layer to David's motive. Karen's divorce filing, funded by a loan from her friends Bill and Kathy, threatened to upend his life. Losing control of his wife and potentially his family and finances painted a picture of desperation that prosecutors would lean on heavily. When the case finally reached the courtroom, it became a battleground of doubt and strategy. The defense team worked tirelessly to shift the spotlight onto others in Karen's life. Bill and Kathy Boner were portrayed as instigators of chaos, their lifestyle framed as reckless and potentially dangerous. The defense highlighted the allegations of their influence over Karen, hoping to sow the seeds of reasonable doubt in the minds of the jury. The jury faced a daunting task. While the evidence against David was compelling, the defense's efforts to implicate others left room for uncertainty. In the end, they delivered a verdict of manslaughter rather than first-degree murder, a decision that reflected the complexity of the case and the lingering shadows of doubt. For those who followed Karen Swift's story, the trial offered some resolution but far from the closure her loved ones hoped for. Questions remained unanswered, and the truth about what happened that night still felt incomplete. As the courtroom emptied, one thing was certain: the echoes of Karen's life and death would not fade easily. The story didn't end with the verdict. Just months after his release, David Swift's name made headlines again. Following his second divorce, he was arrested for stalking his ex-wife, a chilling reminder of the patterns that marked his relationship with Karen. This new development painted a darker picture of a man who struggled to let go, a man who seemed to view relationships not as partnerships, but as something to control. Looking back at the case, David's behavior before and after Karen's death reveals a troubling narrative. Friends described him as possessive, someone who needed to know where Karen was, who she was with, and what she was doing at all times. When he felt his grasp slipping as Karen moved toward independence, with the divorce his response seemed calculated, desperate, and, ultimately, destructive. His attempts to mislead investigators, from his carefully timed emotional outbursts to his fixation on implicating others, only added to the suspicion. But even with David's arrest, doubts linger. Bill and Kathy Boner, once Karen's trusted friends, were cast under a shadow of suspicion during the trial. And then there was the unsettling presence of John, the neighbor known for poisoning animals. Was the case against David airtight? Or were there threads left unexplored? For Karen's loved ones, the trial and subsequent revelations bring a bittersweet resolution. Justice, if it was served, feels incomplete. The questions surrounding Karen's death remain layered, tangled in a web of relationships, motives, and hidden truths. What truly happened that October night may never be fully known. But one thing is clear: Karen's story is a haunting reminder of the complexities that lie beneath the surface of even the closest relationships. Karen Swift's story is a poignant reminder of the fragility of trust and the hidden complexities of relationships. A devoted mother, a woman striving for independence, her life was tragically cut short. Her story is not just one of love, betrayal, and control. It's a cautionary tale about the unseen dangers that can exist in even the most familiar spaces. As we close this chapter, we leave you with lingering questions. Do you believe David Swift is guilty? Or could someone else in Karen's circle have played a role in her death? Was this a crime of passion? Or is there more to the story than what the trial revealed? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Join us at True Crime Theatre HQ for more stories like this one. Together, we'll continue to explore the cases that challenge us, haunt us, and remind us of the value of seeking the truth.